Welcome to District of Missouri Politics. 2 weeks left in the legislative session, and we are joined now. You know, to get to the end of the session, you start thinking of politics time. You're a legislator who's in the middle of many of the things happening in the House of Representatives, but you're here to announce that you're running for state Senate, correct?
I am. I'm running for Senate District 8.
So Representative Keri Ingle going to be Senator Keri Ingle, correct?
Hopefully.
So it's a seat right now. It's in Lee Summit, kind of the southeast corner of Jackson County.
That's right.
Currently held by Mike Sirpoy, right?
Yes.
Okay, you would be the first Democrat I remember holding that seat for, I guess, back into the 90s, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
It would be a seat you would flip,
Yes.
but you flipped a House seat, correct?
I did. Yeah. Back in 2018, also during a Trump midterm.
Yep.
I think anytime you have one party controlling most of the branches of government, I think that you have that natural backlash that happens generally at midterms. And so, hopefully the stars align for me again.
So you've been so kind throughout the years to be a guest on our Opinion Maker panel, which I'm very grateful for. But we've never really got a chance to talk about you and your family. Tell me about your family and kind of how you came to politics.
Yeah. So I have two children. Dylan, who is 13, and Hattie, who is 8, going on 17. And she had actually she was just born in 2016, right before the election. And so I was on maternity leave with her and had a lot of time to think about, what I wanted my impact to be. I was working as a social worker for the Jackson County Children's Division. I was in charge of adoptions for the entire county and I loved that job. Incredibly meaningful work, but had a chance to really think about ways in which I could impact policy at a much higher level. I saw that there was, a deficit of understanding of child welfare policy, which is an incredibly niche area of expertise. And, there's a lot to know within that. And there's a lot of unintended consequences by really well-meaning legislators if there's not someone at the table weighing in on those things. And so I thought that maybe this would be a way to impact macro level politics, in a really meaningful way by running for office. And so I chose to do that then.
And that was been 8 years ago?
Yes.
Ran in a Republican-held seat, ended up flipping it. You've not had a particularly serious challenge in that district yet, right? Maybe your first reelection?
Yeah, I would say the first, yeah. But we've treated every one of my election cycles seriously. You either run unopposed or you run scared. And I think that it's really important to go out and meet your constituents at the doors every single cycle. And so we've chosen to do that.
When do you start doing something like that?
Generally, we do it at the very beginning of the spring, or right when session ends. You start out there knocking.
Well, and you're in a place where those voters are very compact, right? You know the districts where the precincts where there's a high turnout. You know which houses to go to. It's not like you're Cindy O'Loughlin's reporter who's going to be driving all over Northeast Missouri. What are you at any given time? You're 15 miles from the center of your district, no matter where you are in that southeast area. Give me some of the issues. Why you decided to run for state senate? I mean, you could go off, take the name you built for yourself, have a career, make money. You're choosing to run for state senate. Why?
I think that it's a really good opportunity to kind of push back against the extremism that we're seeing both at the state and the federal level. I think that most Missourians, and certainly most of the constituents in Senate District 8, are more moderate leaning. They want folks who are logical and make sound rational decisions, as opposed to just trying to make viral sound clips for themselves. They want good paying jobs. They want sound public education. They want public safety. And they want us to stay out of the more culture war issues that, are constantly up for debate by the right. And so I think that this is a chance to really balance the scales in the Senate.
A lot of the legislature's time is focused on the city of St. Louis, a topic that I've not found that many Jackson Countyans that really appreciate. Is there an angle there where you start discussing, we're going to spend less time on St. Louis, more time on the rest of the state?
Right, absolutely. So, I'm so proud to represent the Kansas City area. We are also part of the economic engine of the state of Missouri, and I'm so proud to represent the area where we have the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're going to keep those Kansas City Royals too.
I've been really proud of Kehoe's work to get the Royals out of Missouri. I hope he can finish that off. I mean, I've still never seen an apology for the 10/26/85 terror attack.
Yeah. But I'm telling you that the area, there's a huge sense of pride in the Kansas City region, and it's something that, unites, I think, the entire side of the state. it certainly has united the Kansas City delegation.
The very talented Missouri Mapper produces these wonderful maps. It's on Twitter at Missouri Mapper, and it kind of showed where some of these issues. To me, your election is such a unique situation where you've watched time after time. Missourians will vote for Prop A.
Right.
They'll vote for Amendment 3 for abortion rights. They'll expand Medicaid, on and on and on. And then they'll go to the polls and they'll vote sometimes the exact same election. They'll vote against right to work, and they'll vote Republican.
Right.
Almost all of those ballot measures have done very well in the 8th, increasingly so.
Absolutely.
Are you the person that can connect the ballot issue where folks are more Democratic with actually voting for a Democrat?
I hope so. I know from knocking doors for the last 4 cycles that we've seen so much support for issues like Amendment 3, even from folks who identify as being very conservative. They just feel like there's too much extremism. We also hear constantly, whether it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you equate yourself to, folks don't feel heard by their government. And they certainly don't feel heard by a government that's constantly trying to turn over what the folks are voting on, right?
It does. I watch you on the floor. You have a little more swagger when you're talking about Amendment 3, when you're talking about Prop A, because you do have the wind at your back of having the public endorse your position on this.
Right, absolutely. So I think that those are issues that are going to be, really important in next election cycle. But I think that the thing that we're going to be focused on primarily is what everyone in America is focused on right now, which is the economy, making sure that folks are able to plan for the future and be able to afford, their rent, their mortgage, and to put their kids through college or trade school.
So as of right now, you don't have a Democrat opponent, correct?
That's right.
Former Representative Dan Stacy's discussed running, but it's pretty quiet on the Republican side. And the Democrat side, you have the field to yourself as of now?
I believe so, yes.
So how far or west does this district run? Does it run up to the city limits of Kansas City?
It does. So it encompasses all of Lee Summit on the western side, and it goes all the way out to Blue Springs.
And it goes out west a ways, right? Lone Jack and all that.
Yeah, so it picks up Greenwood and Lone Jack as well.
So tell me, the Royals, everybody in Kansas City has some level of interest in discussing this. Where do they end up?
I'm still hopeful that for a downtown location. That's something that I love about St. Louis is that the Cardinals right there downtown. I think that it feeds right into that Kansas City mentality of being able to hop on that streetcar, go down to River Market, go to the Plaza, go to Westport. There's so much to see and offer. And
you can fit tens and tens of Royals fans that go to the games. Just kidding. I love a downtown park.
Yeah.
I will say the measure that was defeated at the polls, it kind of looked like it was hard for me to get my mind around. You could fit an entire baseball stadium on that footprint.
Yeah.
I think that was maybe the Northland has a huge development area.
They do.
I think they stay in the Kansas City area, I guess would be the point, and hopefully the Missouri side.
Yes, so absolutely the Missouri side, but I'm interested in the Clay proposition, obviously, but as a Jackson County gal, I would love to find a way to keep them there.
But you're definitely keeping the Chiefs.
Yes, absolutely.
Going to get renovated stadium, comes up in August maybe.
It's hard to find a Kansas Cityan that doesn't absolutely want to keep the Chiefs
and willing to pay for it.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot, as you know, lots of folks are like stuff.
Absolutely, but I think that it's hard to overlook the economic boom that having the Kansas City Chiefs, the world's greatest football team, right there.
Really, people when they talk about these things, I watch some folks that are generally against public funding of stuff like this. They make a fair point. They have charts and graphs, but they never really talk about how valuable is it for Kansas City to be said at the Super Bowl, the biggest event in the world,
right.
5 years in a row or 4 or 5 years,
right?
And the branding of Kansas City that does. I honestly don't know how you could even quantify that value.
Right, absolutely. The cultural impact that it's made on the city is just absolutely.
Yeah,
you can't say anything about it.
It is reminiscent of the Cardinals. I mean, I've always said the Cardinals are a baseball team with a city. St. Louis is not a city with a baseball team.
Right.
I mean, the city exists for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And if it happens to do some other things, that's fine too. But the Cardinals are what makes St. Louis run. I think in a lot of ways that Chiefs kingdom and that pride, it is very much a part of Kansas City.
Oh, we all wear it on our shirts 24/7. We are very, very, very proud of our city.
Tell me another issue that you've knocked the doors in this district as a state rep many times. You've knocked the part of this district where the race will be decided in November.
Yeah.
When folks talk, what are the issues they talk about?
So we've hit on the economy, which is obviously at the forefront of everyone's mind, is making ends meet, being able to live within your means and plan for the future, right? So when we're going to be talking about tariffs a lot this time next year and the impact that it's had on.
For me against them.
I am not for the way that they're currently being administered in any way, shape, or form.
Though. I mean, as a person who is now a very seasoned political veteran, before Trump, you and I might have had different positions on tariffs,
right?
And I'm still not sure they're good if you want the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so interesting how both parties, when Trump switched, the Democrats have in many ways decided they're going to oppose tariffs. Dick Gephardt somewhere has to be like, what? I've been working my whole life for this. What's going on here?
Well, I mean, the way I look at it, and I find myself, retweeting people like Rand Paul right now because I agree. Politics makes strange bedfellows, and I agree with the way that he looks at the economy and in this specific way, that tariffs are taxes on the consumers. So
taxes the Democrats have worked to place up until Trump.
Not to this extent. Like we were seeing them across the board, and they're very, very, very aggressive. And they're from our allies that we're going to need. We get most of our lumber from Canada. That's going to be really problematic. We, a lot of the things that we need for ag are imported from Canada as well. When we're talking about
things they sell in ag is exported to places like Canada and China.
And when we talk about making the historic investments that we are in our infrastructure, we're not looking at the fact that that may not be enough for what we're going to need to do with the impacts of tariffs. It's just so hard to tell right now.
So as we wrap up session, you've been at the front. You're one of the last folks the Democratic caucus has to speak on a lot of these bills. It does look like the Republicans are going to send some form of a repeal of Amendment 3 to the ballot. You spoke against that, but politically, there's worse things that could happen for you running in the 8th District of Missouri.
I think that the people will make their voice heard yet again at the ballot box. I have great faith in the people of this state, regardless of who they vote for, that they understand what they're voting for.
I agree with you totally.
And
I was like the most disingenuous argument in the world to stand on the floor as an elected official and say the folks were stupid on these propositions, but where I'm concerned, they are spot on.
Exactly. And so even if I disagree with them, I don't assume that they don't know what they're doing. Like we need to respect the will of the voters, and I feel very strongly about that. And so when we look at the repeal of Amendment 3, which I believe is a Republican.
Now, Quentin Lucas in Kansas City is trying to go against the will of the voters. When they had that constitutional amendment to raise the police salaries as part of the budget, he's suing it. And if that was a Republican, the Star would say he's overturned the will of the voters. Sometimes it's in the eye of the beholder, right?
I agree.
Ballot candy on Clean Missouri was wholesome Metamucil protein-filled food, but ballot candy on one of these social issues is ballot candy. I think it's all ballot candy, and I think you're right to call it out. But as session winds down, if that's on the ballot even next summer, that's not the worst thing for state Senate candidate Keri Ingle.
I don't disagree, because I think that it's kind of a microcosm of what we see, year to year in the legislature and both ends of the chambers, right?
Even if they overturn it statewide. I don't think they overturn it in the 8th District of
No, I don't think that they do. I have faith that the people of the 8th Senate District are able to have the reading comprehension skills to know what they're voting on, unlike my Republican counterparts. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your kickoff. Thank you for coming here and talking about on This Week in Missouri Politics. And we hope as the next, 14 months unfold, we can talk about this race a ton more.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
We'll be right back with our opinion maker panel after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople, while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
You know, Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance in support of Missouri farmers.
Missouri's childcare crisis is hurting our children, families, and even our economy. Currently, 78 Missouri counties are designated as child care deserts, where the number of kids needing child care exceeds the number of available options. Today, some Missouri families are spending more on child care than housing, and Missouri's child care shortage costs our economy $1.35 billion every year. Missouri families and businesses deserve better. Learn more at mochampionofchildren.com.
Some politicians claim cockfighting is a proud tradition, but is it really something to be proud of? Cockfighting isn't just cruel to animals, it's cruel to humans. It's linked to organized criminal activity, illegal gambling, even drug trafficking. Leading law enforcement and Christian groups have spoken out and are urging a stop to the violence. But some politicians want to give cockfighters a pass. Keep cockfighting out of our state.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back. This week in Missouri Politics, Opinion Maker Panel Time. We are joined by first time on the show, Mark Boyko from Kirkwood. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Warrensburg's own Brandon Phelps. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
One of my favorite people in the legislature, Sherri Gallick. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
And the man from Independence, Jobe. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for having me.
Sherri, you have a bill. So Prop A passed last year by a healthy margin, raised the minimum wage, had all these things to interfere with businesses and tell them what to do. You've got something, you're trying to tweak some of those changes, correct?
I am trying to tweak some of those changes. My bill does not do anything to the minimum wage because that's pretty much clear cut. I mean, when you're working, it's like per hour, you're making this much money at a minimum. The sick leave is very complicated. Their businesses are not all the same.
But Brandon, is there ever a time? I don't ever see the end of people in Washington, D.C. trying to tell people in Washington, Missouri how to run their businesses.
Well, I agree with you. I don't know that I ever see the end of it. It would be nice to see an end come to that. And, ultimately in Missouri, and I'm sure in most rural states and states everywhere, the business owners should be left alone. They know how to run their business. They know what's best in their particular market, and we need to allow them to do what's best for them, their employees, and their market.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jobe, tell me, I mean, at some point, if you don't like your job, you go work somewhere else, right?
Yeah, I think you do. I will say, I mean, we talk a lot about how complicated what I would suggest is a pretty simple calculation is. I'm not great at math. That's why I went to law school, but it seems pretty easy to me to track, 1 hour for every week that you work. I don't know what everybody else's thought was, but as I was going around talking to people, as I was campaigning to try and get down here, I had a lot of conversations about Prop A and the question is there.
People talked about it when you knocked on their door?
I had a number of them that talked about it, that were out working and to try and inform.
Because you had to actually knock doors.
I did.
You have a very good sample because you got to actually knock doors in the fall. You got a pretty good, so people would bring up Proposition 8 over Amendment 3 and other things.
Yes, actually, they would. And to be honest with you, I spent more time talking about the sick leave part of Prop A than I did the minimum wage increase. And so to me, it actually seemed like getting that guaranteed sick leave so that a mom doesn't have to decide between taking care of her kid or going to work was a more important piece to the people as they voted on it than actually the incremental change in minimum wage.
What do you think?
Look, I knocked on more doors than I had to, but I didn't need to knock doors. I've traveled the state, my whole life. Missourians value Missourians, and that's what we saw at the ballot box. That's why it passed by 15 percentage points. So I think the people of Missouri spoke clearly that they want to invest in the people of Missouri, and there's plenty of businesses that are on the side of Proposition A as well. I think it passed 6 months ago now. We're in May. Implementation, the first day is today. So workers are going to start to see that paid sick leave coming in. It's not an outrageous amount, 1 hour for every 30 hours worked. This is the sort of thing that a lot of other states, a lot of other countries have. We're not inventing a new wheel here. We're not doing anything other people haven't done, except we're doing something really strong and investing in the people of Missouri.
Brandon, I guess I just wonder why these cold-hearted, terrible people in Washington didn't set our minimum wage at $18 an hour. I think that's the only fair amount. And if you set it at 18, why not 25? Why not 50?
Why not just keep going?
Yep.
Why not just keep going? And
Maybe the business owners hand the keys to them and say, here you go. You're on it.
great question. And sometimes it feels like that's where we're going.
Will they take the banknote, though? I think they'll take the keys. I don't think they'll want the banknote.
I think you're right.
Well, tell me, why 15? Why not 75? Why not 79? Why not 69?
Well, I think there is a conversation to be had about what is an actual living wage in Missouri, and where we go. I was happy with the incremental change that they did. I think it's responsible and at least slow.
So how cold-hearted is Will that he only wants to pay $15 an hour?
Right now, we are 18th in the country as far as minimum wage. We are 46th in cost of living. That's a large discrepancy. I think housing was at like 78% when you look at the national averages. So it's just, to me, it's not apples to apples, and I believe that it should be between the employer and the employee. And the other thing is there are 6 states right now that are at $7.25. When you live next to a bordering state, a business can go across the state line, open a business, and perhaps the rent might be a little bit higher, but your labor cost is generally.
You got to call Doug Beck and tell him they should go to Kansas and mess around.
No, we don't want them to go.
Last question. What is the people from Washington that want to fund all these kids? Go over and mess with Kansas.
There you go.
What is the right minimum wage?
Look, you can slippery slope, any argument. I think $15 an hour is well supported when you look at the experience other states have had. This is the great part about the way that our national government is set up, is different states can experiment in different ways, and people a lot smarter than me and better at math than lawyers like Mr. Jobe and myself can figure out what's a number that works. I think it is a right number, and I'll also point out that we've tried in St. Louis City to raise that minimum wage and make it a more local thing that wouldn't apply to the whole state. And our predecessors who were in our offices, at that time, said we couldn't do it.
Yep.
Right. So we tried this, and now we have to do it your way.
We need to listen to people when they express their will at the ballot box. You can think
it does make for a better argument when the people of Missouri have voted for your position. I see it's a little more gusto on the House floor from your caucus when the people of this state have voted for your perspective. The Republicans love to talk about supermajorities, but you have a statewide mandate on this issue that I agree with you. Nobody knew what's in that. Nobody ever does. But the fact is they voted for it. I've never liked it when people say, oh, voters are really dumb about these ballot measures. But when they vote for state representative, they have done all the research. They have Googled it. They are on point.
Yeah, the two arguments don't seem to go together overly well. And I will say, listen, the people have spoken on this thing, and that is true. But the idea that nothing ever needs to be modified, improved, tweaked, if we applied that logic to all things we do in life, we'd really be in trouble, because the idea is to live and learn and make adjustments as you go. And I think there needs to be some adjustments on this.
Let's talk about open enrollment. Brad Pollitt, someone I have a very high regard for, has basically come up with the idea that says schools can opt into something where you have some extra seats. You can have them filled by people that don't live in your district. It seems pretty simple. It does. It doesn't seem like it's the most complex thing. I always frustrated the school establishment people, just anything that happens, oh my God, can't do that. It seems like there's nothing you can do except send them more money.
Well, I would agree. Now, I will tell you, I feel like we've got great schools in my district, great schools, great teachers, but I would agree with you. They don't seem to be in favor with most decisions that are made. And in this particular case, especially in my district, it was overwhelming, the number of people who wanted to see us moving towards some version of open enrollment. And, we talk about the people and the people speaking, and in my district, they wanted open enrollment, or we're moving towards that. There is resistance from the school districts, but this is a very mild version of open enrollment, and I think it's really good for everybody, including the district.
The one thing you don't have in your district is fashion designers, right?
What?
Between David Pierce's jackets and Denny's Hosker's jackets, it's very clear. What do you think? I mean, Kirkwood is a school people would want to go to. If Kirkwood opened up 10 seats, there'd be 200 people apply for them, right?
Yeah, and 10 years from now, if that was the law, Kirkwood would waste more taxpayer dollars on marketing. We'd probably have a nicer football locker room than we do now. We'd spend more taxpayer dollars on that. I'd prefer to see it spent in the classroom. And you know, is it gonna kill the state of Missouri? No, but I haven't given up hope that every Missouri kid, regardless of where they live, will be able to get a quality education. That's what I'm working for. What do you think?
I received more emails and calls on this than any other thing this year. Against it from my district. I have very rural schools. I have 10 school districts, and a lot of them were very adamant they did not want this.
I'll give you a prediction. I think if open enrollment passes, it won't be the big schools. It'll be the small schools that see the increase in students.
I agree with you, but that is the information that was given to me, and that's their voices when you talk about.
I just never hear any of these education people ever say, okay, we hate all this. I hear them say that. I never say, let's try this.
I agree.
It's always, give us more money. What do you think? I mean, Independence is probably a school district. Kansas City people would probably want to come there if they could.
Yeah, and that's fair. And for me, I think those
Your folks might want to go to Butler, right?
that's true. I think those two ideas that you talked about are tied for me. You talked about the funding issue, and you talk about openness to new ideas and innovation and options for people in schooling. Because I agree with the idea that we need to innovate and we need to be particular to kids' needs about how we do our education system, and they need to have options. But I also think that if we do that without dealing with the funding piece, that you're just setting up a recipe for a disaster.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that have the idea on who's going to fund all the new charter. I think it's folks that live on gravel roads. They've got their eye on their wallet. With a minute left there, who won the week?
For me, it's going to be Senator Lickenhuff and the Senate Budget Committee. They did a lot more than I thought they were going to, and they did it a lot later in the night than I thought they were going to. I appreciate the.
Been said about Lincoln many times. And was Representative Gallick who won the week?
The women in the legislature. They got the child welfare package across the line and protected women's rights and marriage. You can't get married now until you're 18. So.
I make it 28, right? I mean,
times have changed.
Yeah.
A lot of people talked about this as they had a grandparent that married early, but times have changed. Many people don't even get married now.
It's so nice to see you carry something across the finish line that former Senator Rader worked so hard on.
She did.
It was very nice. Who won the week?
Governor Kehoe, we're 100 days into his administration, and under his leadership, everything in the Capitol and in the building's been working great. He wins the week.
I don't think anybody wants to take their receipt back and get a different governor. I think
I don't think
the one they got. The one the week.
The workers and the voters in Missouri. Today is the first day. We're filming this on Thursday. It's the first day that workers are earning paid sick leave in the state of Missouri, just like the voters said that they should.
Speaking of, I've got a cold. We have to wrap this up. But I'm going to say my buddy Tom Burcham. He was one of the most outstanding Southeast Missourians that we've produced. Very active in all sorts of civic causes. He won the award at the St. Francis County Lincoln Aid that Casey and I were very honored to get to MC. My buddy Tom Burcham won the week. We hope you'll win the week. Next week, by coming back here, by joining us with our 1 week left to go in session edition of This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, the United Electric Cooperative, and the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts.